Hey y'all, it is Rebecca, and in today's video, we are doing Customer Service Chronicles episode 5. I filmed episode 4 yesterday, and in that video, I told you that I would tell you about the retired judge in the next episode, and that's what I'm filming today. So, if you are interested in hearing the exciting story of the retired judge who is 89 years old that I helped back-to-back 2 days in a row, then keep watching. I'm going to roll my intro and then we'll get started with that. So this phone call started off rough, and I'm going to start you off there. This customer called in and was super pissed off. I have been calling you since November. I can't get past your stupid AI. I am so frustrated. I don't know what it took for me to get a human to call me. This has been the most infuriating process to get to a human. That is how the call started. Normally, when you have a call that starts off that hostile, your defenses go right up. You take a step back from your call, your hackles are up, your heart starts to race, you start going, oh shit. And you're like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry to hear that you had such a hard time getting past the automated system. I will do my best. Actually, the phrase that I used was, I will do my utmost to assist you today to see what I can do to make the situation better. I am so sorry to hear that you had issues getting past our AI system. Tell me a little bit about what's going on, and I will see how I may best assist you. He then goes on to tell me, now this was earlier in the week. He then goes on to tell me, I am 89 years old. I'm not really computer savvy. I've been using your program for over 20 years, and this is just pissing me off. I hate all these steps. I hate all this and that and the other. And he mentioned a few different steps that you have to do in order to get into certain things. But because what we do deals with a lot of personal information between addresses, banking information, social security numbers, date of births, things like that, we have to have a bunch of security measures. We use biometrics to get into systems. And of course, I don't leave it plugged into my machine when I'm not working, but we have a biometric key that we have to use in order to get into systems. And we use other security methods on our systems in order to even access other things like VPNs and other things on top of that. So we personally, as agents, when we're even trying to go to work, we have a bazillion security steps that we have to do to even access the systems, to access the accounts that we assist with. And so customers don't realize just how strenuous it is on our side of things just to assist them when they call in. That's why the motto for our company is verify, never supply. You can scream and cuss and yell at me all day long, but I will never fucking give you out any information if you have not already provided it to me at least once. If you haven't told me your email or your phone number or the last four of your social or your date of birth or anything like that, I'm not going to tell you shit. And if I tell you anything, guess what? I am out of a fucking job. And I'm the only one working right now. So keep that in mind for this conversation. So this customer was trying to do an install. They have more than one device. They needed access to install software on their computer in order to get something to load so that they can get something done. And so my job is to assist them to get the software to load. But this consumer is mad. They've been calling for over a month to get this done, and they are just not having any luck. Like none. They can't get past the AI. I can see every time that they've attempted to call the automated system by, of course, the way our cases are structured. You can see when a customer starts an interaction with the AI system, but it doesn't like get past a certain step, because the automated system, to be honest, for the company that I work for, is asinine, and I would cuss it out too. And I usually tell customers the phrasing that they need in order to get past it, which I will tell you now. If you call any customer service line and you get an AI, this usually works whether you are calling the government, a bank, or any other customer service hotline that has an automated bot that you have to talk to. Whether it's my company, an ISP, a retailer, or whatever, and it will not route you to a human. The phrase is, I need to speak to a fucking human now. Normally, if it doesn't catch it the first time, say it a second time. And I am dead serious. I need to speak to a fucking human now. Now, some consumers do not like to use profanity. Some have absolutely no problem with it. I, of course, am on a recorded phone line, so I cannot use the F word. So, of course, I usually say, you need to make sure that you use the word. I'm on a recorded phone line, so I can't tell you what the word is, but I'm sure with my abbreviated form, you can figure it out. If you're not comfortable using profanity, unfortunately, I'm not sure if you replace the word, if it will work or not, but this usually works on every call I've ever had, no matter where I've called. It usually works really quickly to get you to a human if you use this phrase. And I usually say on my recorded calls, I need to speak to an effing human now. And that's what I tell my callers. I have never had it fail me. And usually the automated system will say, please hold while we route your call to a live agent, or please hold while we patch you through to an assistant, or please hold one moment while we transfer your call. It'll automatically go, oh shit. I don't know if it's the cussing that does it. I don't know if it's the way I say it. I don't know if it's how I say it. Because you can scream human at it all day long and it just goes. And sits there. You can say, I want a human, and it goes. And you're like, okay. And then you can say, I am losing my fucking patience. And it just sits there. Say, God damn it, I just want to talk to somebody. Can't I just talk to a fucking human? And it's like, sure, one moment, please. And you're like, oh my fucking God. Why was that so fucking hard? Like literally, you will just lose your ever-loving mind talking to an AI. So I understand why this customer was so pissed off. So, when we first got on the call, okay, this call was a little over an hour long. We needed to be able to do a screen share. I sent them the information to do the screen share. It said they were not connected to the internet at all. And I'm like, I used to work for an internet service provider, Spectrum to be exact. And so I'm like, okay, it sounds like your internet is not currently connected. Do you have a modem or a router? Do you have an all-in-one unit? What do you have? And like, I'd already told them that I used to work for an ISP, used to work in tech support. I can help them with that. Not supposed to, but because we need the screen share to help get the program installed on their system, I needed to be able to see what was going on if there's no internet. You know, and I did at first because I knew he was pissed off and I kind of really didn't want to take the call. I was like, well, if we can't get you connected to the internet, and by this time we were already 15 minutes in on the call. If I cannot get you connected to the internet, I unfortunately would have to have you call back once your internet's connected, you may need to call your internet service provider to find out what's going on with your internet. But I'm willing to work with you to see what we can do about getting your internet reset. I walked him through the troubleshooting steps on a computer. And if you guys want troubleshooting steps on how to reset your modem and all that kind of stuff, I am happy to do a breakdown video on that from somebody who's worked for an internet service provider. I can talk through why you do certain things, why certain things are done certain ways, what it sends signal-wise to the internet service provider, what's a hard reset. I can do videos on all of that stuff. Just leave a comment down below if you want information on that, because as somebody who worked for one of the largest companies, which is Charter, I can explain how all that stuff works, why certain modems need to be reset every 30 days, what it shows on the back end of the system, what a T3 and T4 drop are, what certain routers and stuff do, what the system looks like on the back end, what happens when a firmware patch doesn't go through. I can explain all of that. If you guys want a video on that, please let me know in the comments below. Leave a comment. It will not be a customer service chronicles video. It'll just be my experience. It'll be in the customer service like folder for like the playlist, but it'll just be like tech support, basically, like what it's like as a breakdown thing. So anyway, so we went through computer troubleshooting first. That didn't work. So I ended up having to explain to him about having to unplug his modem and why we unplugged the modem and not just the router. And we went through that step, had to cycle out the modem and then plug that back in. Once we did that, then all kinds of stuff started working on his machine that wasn't working before. And I'm like, uh-oh, that tells me the internet on his machine had been off for a while, because the modem started downloading packets of information. That tells me that his internet had been offline for more than an hour. And he didn't know it. So that was the first hurdle that we had to get over. That was the first 15, 20 minutes of the call, was going through that. And while we were working through those troubleshooting steps and that whatnot, we're like chit-chatting and stuff. And by then, by the 22-minute mark, I had finally calmed him down. And then we get into, okay, I need you to log into your blah, blah, blah account. I need you to click here and then go here, click this to start the download. And then, I had already had the screen share going at that point. So I'm watching everything that he's doing so I can see what's going on. And as we're doing each step, of course, we're chit-chatting and stuff. And he's telling me about like his life, and we're just chit-chatting back and forth. At this point, I had no idea this man was a retired judge. No idea about his background and stuff about the legal side of things. So then we're talking about his financials and what he's using the program for and his stocks and bonds and trades. And then we start talking about the fact that he just bought a new Jeep Grand Cherokee. It wasn't a Renegade. It was something else. It's the new EV model that they just came out with. And I was like, oh, my friend Shelly, if you guys want to check her out, her name is Geek Out of Water on YouTube, just went to the Jeep dealership in Virginia, and because she had to go in and get her windshield replaced, because if you guys don't know about the Renegades, their windshields crack really easily. So she went in to get her windshield replaced, and she just looked at the new Renegades that are EV models. So we got talking about the EV model because the judge lives in California. He's originally from East Coast, but now he lives out west. So we were talking about the Jeep Grand Cherokee that he just bought and about how it charges and how long the battery life is on it and about how it turns off. And like we were like just full on talking about the car as we're doing our installs and whatnot. And then we didn't even talk about like his career or anything. We literally discussed vehicles and like car models and engines and battery capacities and solar powered things and eco model cars. And I told a story about like the Prius I test drove once and about the first time like it auto shut off when I was in the test drive. Like it terrified me and I thought the car had died. And like he got a good giggle out of that. But like we really had a really good conversation while he was in the process of the install. So as we were doing like the install, I walked him through every step, why we click certain things, because he kept asking questions. And a lot of customers, I find, our employer wants us to send them the email with the information that they need to just load the thing, click the buttons, and follow the steps on a website. That's all they want us to do. They don't want us to handhold anymore because we get paid, I think right now it's like 21 cents a talk minute is what we get paid. Now, we do get paid to be in available status as of right now, but come January when they'll have more people working and stuff. Right now, there's only about 100 of us that work throughout the week. So, or there's only 100 agents that currently work. And then come January, there's a whole bunch of people that they'll start bringing in that are temporary. And then the pay rate will go up to, I think it's 32 cents a talk minute or 35 cents a talk minute. We don't get paid a whole lot. Anyways, we flip over from being able to be paid for available plus talk time, which is what we get paid right now, to only getting paid while we are on a call. So keep that in mind. So they don't really want us to stay on the phone and handhold, which sometimes customers need that, especially customers over a certain age. And again, this customer is 89 years old. So he's almost 90 and he's doing fabulous on a computer. I mean, I have never had a consumer this old that was that with it with a computer. I have 20-year-olds that can't follow directions this well. Like, kudos to this judge. I am not kidding. This man was amazing at following directions, asked the right questions, had amazing questions to ask. It was a really wonderful experience working with this consumer. So then as we're going through all of the steps, he's asking, okay, why do we do this? Why is this here? Why did I have to go through this step? Why is this necessary? And happy to explain all of it, because when you have an informed consumer, it makes them feel good about what you are doing in your job. One, because you know. Two, it makes them more secure in your company, that they've bought into a company and they're using product from a company and feel safer in what they're using, because now they understand a little bit more as to why they patron your company. They don't want a faceless entity to purchase from. They want a company that they can care about. Most consumers don't just go out and buy, oh, I'm just going to go buy, XYZ brand because it's cheap. Some customers want to buy from a notable brand because of what the brand does for them, the recognition of the brand, the abilities that it brings to them, how customer service treats them. There's a lot of factors that go into why a customer comes back to a brand every year. And in this case, this consumer's come back to us for 20 years. We want to make sure that that stays. And this consumer really wanted to understand the ins and outs of why they were doing certain things. And now that I know that they're a retired judge, it makes more sense. So then at the very end of the call, the customer was like, hey, I use this program on more than one computer. Is there any way that I can get you back like tomorrow? Because I know your phone lines are now closed and that like you really can't help me install it now. Plus it's not here. It's at, so-and-so's house, and then I have to go get it and whatnot because I let my kid borrow it. Is there any way like I can call you back and get you tomorrow? And unfortunately, the way our phone system is done, like when I used to work for like Nike customer support, we had a station ID on there, like, or with some phone carriers that we have, like with 5.9, there is an extension number that pops up, or with some of the other, like when I worked for Omni, when I was doing the medical stuff, when I was doing the claims, the workers' comp claims, on Bright Pattern, there's a extension number. There's a 6-digit extension number on there that you can just put somebody on hold. You click on the transfer button and then you type in either a person's name or the 6-digit code. And then you hit like a little, it's like a little, I don't know, it's like, there's like arrows, like a little arrow here and like an arrow on this one. And that symbol's like a transfer thing. And then you hit that once the number is punched in, or again, you can type in somebody's name and it'll just transfer the call over to them. And then that way it'll go specifically from like that person's phone to somebody else's phone, and the transfer's like instantaneous. But with the phone system like Amazon Connect, which is what we use for work, it's a round robin system. So whoever logs into the phone system first gets that call first. And then whoever is in available status first, again, gets that call first. So we don't have a set station ID or like phone number that you can call in and say, yeah, I want Rebecca. I'm looking for Rebecca. Oh, can you transfer me to her? There's no way to do that. And then if you hit the transfer system, we can only transfer to like certain departments. There's no way to transfer to a specific desk or extension or anything like that. You can transfer to a specific phone number, like when we have to call like the billing department or finance. But actually, we're not even supposed to transfer to finance because I told us not to. And that's usually only to check like if a consumer is trying to pay for something and like they've had a chargeback in the system. That's the only reason why we don't want to transfer to them, because if a consumer has ever had a chargeback with the company that I work for, billing doesn't want to talk to them anyways, but we are only allowed to talk to finance. They're not supposed to ever call finance, and we're never supposed to give that number out. I think you can Google it and find the number, but if a consumer ever calls finance and stuff, finance is not supposed to talk to them at all. That was what we were told. That's what we were trained. And so we are never allowed to transfer. So we always do the direct calls to finance for consumers. So even that's a little iffy. So I have, and it's kind of like you ask one supervisor and you get one story, and you ask another supervisor and you get another story. And so one supervisor says you can do callbacks, but the other supervisors say you can't. So I don't know. We used to be able to do callbacks like the next day, or you could set up an appointment like if they're having issues, or like as they have to run for like a meeting or something, you can call them back. Usually if it's same day, that's not a big problem. Like if it's next day, it's not that big of a deal. If it's like a week later, there's a big deal about that. And the reason for that is it's considered stealing time because you aren't already on the phone with them. So I try not to make a habit of calling consumers back. But after 8 p.m., our phone lines are closed. We are not allowed to do callbacks at all on consumers, no matter if the call drops or not. If a call drops, we are allowed to call a consumer back within a reasonable amount of time. If we get put to like voicemail or something, we can hang up and wait 5 minutes and then call them back, unless we get a call. And then, of course, we document that the call dropped for unknown reasons or whatever, and then we move on with life. And that we tried to call back. But calling back a whole other day later is not something that we're really supposed to do. I know a lot of other agents that do callbacks, but it's really not something that we are supposed to do. But I have no problem doing it, especially with the age of the customer and the fact that we did work on stuff before, and I didn't offer, they specifically requested it. So when he asked me, how do I get you back? Or can you call me tomorrow? I will have my laptop back. I have to go do this at this time. I know, I don't know what time it is there, but I know your phone lines close at, blah, blah, blah. And so your phone's closed a few minutes ago. And I think I got off the phone with him at like 8:13 that night. So we were only a few minutes over, so it wasn't that bad. But I said, no, I'm here tomorrow afternoon. If you want, I can call you. What works best for you? I'm on the East Coast, so we use Eastern Standard Time when we give people the times. So what time are you going to be back tomorrow, and what works best for you? So I did set up a call back with him. I said, because you cannot call and like ask for me because you don't know what office you're going to call, because there are different call centers and different companies that answer for the client that we work for. So you might call in and get my company, or you might call in and get Workday, or you might call in and get Arise, or you might call in and get Concentrix, or one of the, I think there's 10 companies that do customer service for the main company that we work for. So you don't know exactly who you're calling. And so I just use a general term and say office or call center, to not kind of like out the fact that we're all 1099 contract employees, because we're not supposed to discuss that with customers either, because it's like, no. So I set up to call him back the next day at a specific time. And I did have a call run over, but as soon as I got off the call, I immediately called him back. And this is the fun part. So if you're ready for the meat and potatoes of this is the best part. Okay, so now for the funny part. So the next day that I had to call him back, I called him back and I'm like, hey, is this so-and-so? And he's like, yes, Rebecca, I was waiting on your call. I'm like, okay, hi, this is Rebecca calling from blah, blah, blah. Of course, I've got to say that. And then I said, I do apologize for calling you 30 minutes late, but I was on another call before you, and I do apologize that it did run over, but, we were working on some back taxes and got stuck on something, and so I do apologize for not calling you right at the time that you asked me to call you, but, I'm calling now. He goes, well, I have some great news for you. I'm like, oh? He goes, you're gonna be so proud. And I'm like, I said, oh, what did you break? He said, no, you're really going to be so proud of me. And I'm like, okay. Well, first, let's do the verification stuff that I'm required to do every call, and then you can tell me what you did. So we verified everything that I'm supposed to do every call. And then I said, okay, tell me what happened. So he told me, he goes, you know how you walked me through everything yesterday, and I asked a bunch of questions, and you walked me through how to do this and how, and this and this and this. And you told me to do this and load my computer and get the screen share ready and log into here and get everything prepped on the other computer so that when you called, all you had to do was start the screen share and then I could download everything and get everything started. And I said, yes, I'm glad that you had already started all that stuff. I said, so how far did you get? He goes, you're going to be so proud. He goes, I did everything like you taught me to the day before, and I got everything done all by myself. He was so proud. He was so proud of himself for doing everything that he needed to do all by himself by following my instructions from the day before. He said, the way you explained it the day before and the fact that you took the time to go step by step by step and explain things to me, I needed that. He goes, when I was on the bench, I like to understand things that were put or presented in front of me because it made me have a fuller picture to decide things. And I'm like, bench, wait a minute. Bench? And it kind of set off an alarm bell in my head, but a lot of people use benches for a couple of different types of jobs, so I wasn't quite at judge quite yet. So I said, oh, well, that's great. I'm so glad that my instructions yesterday were clear and easy to follow and that you used them today to do everything that the callback was supposed to be for. I said, so were you able to get everything done that you needed to on the whole reason for the callback? He goes, yes, but I have another question for you. And so he did ask a bunch of questions, and we were on the phone for about another hour. So even though my callback initially was about install issues on a secondary device, he had other questions that were related to the program and things that he needed to do with the program and legalities of things and answering certain questions that I was actually able to answer. And then, of course, I did have to tell him, there are certain things I'm legally not allowed to answer. I said, but I do want to tell you a little bit about my background. And at this point, he hadn't gone into other detail other than the fact that he'd made the comment about when he was on the bench. And we didn't touch on that again. I said, but yesterday I had told you that, I have a master's degree in computer engineering and I used to work for an ISP. I said, but what you don't know about me is I did medical and legal transcription for 20 years. I have an AA in legal studies. I have a paralegal certificate degree. I used to work for a law firm. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I was going to go to law school. So I do have some background in legal stuff. And, when I was a kid and I would get sick and whatnot, and of course I couldn't go to school, my mom would always take me with her to work, and I would go to the court reporter's office and, stay there in the office. And sometimes I would go hang out at the courthouse and like sit in on court hearings and whatnot, which I did, which was like really cool. He's like, oh, well, that reminds me. And then he told me, this is where the light bulb went on for me. And he told me, I had a court reporter that worked for me for a number of years, and she had a really not amicable divorce, and she had a sick child. And I don't know if like the daycare was like closed one day, or there was a strike, or her child was sick or whatever, but she was just going to leave her sick baby in like the office where like nobody was going to watch it. And so she had to take her kid to work and asked me if it was okay. And I'm like, wait a minute, bench. You mentioned bench earlier in the call. Were you a judge? And he goes, yeah, I was a judge for over like 30 years. I'm like, oh my word. I thought, I didn't want to assume anything, but when you said bench, that could mean so many different things, because a lot of different people use bench and whatnot, engineers use benches and whatnot. And I didn't want to assume anything. So I didn't poke or ask, because we didn't talk about it yesterday, so I didn't know what your profession was. And so he goes, yeah, no, I was a judge, and I was a lawyer before that and whatnot. And I was a judge in California for over 30 years. And he goes, I was a specialist judge on the last like 5-10 years that I worked. And so this court reporter worked for me as that specialty court judge. And I said, wait a minute, when you said that she wanted to leave it in an office, is it like her office? And he goes, yeah. And I said, is it one of those offices in like the back wing when like where inmates and stuff would walk down the hall and like come in the courtrooms the back way? And he goes, yes. I said, oh no, you don't want to leave a child in an office where inmates could just, walk by that kind of room, because what happens if the kid toddles out of the room or whatever? Because he told me how old the kid was. And I'm like, that could be really bad, because there's a lot of different individuals that walk up and down that hallway. There's prosecutors that walk down that hallway. Usually defense attorneys don't use the hallway, but like judges use the hallway. Sheriff's deputies use the hallway to bring inmates in and out of the back end of the courtrooms. And then of course, court staff and clerks and stuff use those hallways and stuff as well. So he said what he did was he allowed the court reporter to leave her child in his chambers, which is usually attached to the back end of the courtroom. So like judges leave out of their chambers and kind of lead right either out of a hallway directly into the courtroom. And if you've ever been in a courthouse and you've ever like worked in a courthouse facility or ever been in the inner workings of a courthouse, a lot of people will understand how that is. But if you're not familiar, just kind of picture like the courtroom and like there's a little room that attaches to it, or sometimes there's a hallway. And so like where the back seal is where the judge sits, there's usually like a little door here. And so you walk out into a hallway and then like there's another room right off of that. So those doors are really close to each other. And so the judge can walk right out of their chambers into the courtroom. So they're usually right behind each other. So she had left her kid in the judge's chambers, and he told me this like really cute story about his interaction with his court reporter and stuff. So I thought that was like really touching that he had shared that story with me. But he said, what you did for me yesterday prepared me to install everything that I needed today. And he goes, I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to slow down and tell an old man how to walk through these steps. He goes, I find that a lot of people will rush through things and just try and get the calls over, and they don't want to help you anymore. And he goes, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to walk me through step by step and answer the questions that I had when I asked them. And he goes, your knowledge on all of these things was just fascinating. He goes, I would love to just sit and have a cup of coffee with you and just pick your brain. And I said, oh my God, I have 9 college degrees. I said, that would probably be really nice. And I said, and you could hear his wife in the background. She's like, invite her for a margarita. And I said, no, you don't want to do that. I'm allergic to alcohol. And he goes, well, you just saved me for having to have a second martini tonight. I said, yes, but now you might not need the second martini tonight, but now you can sit back and enjoy your second martini tonight and actually just sit back and enjoy it and not need it to relax from stress. His wife liked that option. So interactions like that with customers really kind of touch my heart. And I know I get a lot of flack from some of the companies that I've done customer service for because I do talk. But see, in all the midst of all this stuff, I'm helping him with other things. So I'm looking for answers for the question that he had asked me about a legality of something, about what was the minimum required for something else. So I'm in the middle of looking up on a government website the answer for his question while we're talking about this. It took me 7 minutes to locate the information. And while I'm working on an email to send him, he's telling me the story about his court reporter's little boy. So I'm not just sitting there doing nothing and just chit-chatting with the customer. And hopefully, if QA ever pulls my call, number one, I'm on a, we didn't need to do a screen share, but they can see my screens and they can see what web pages I'm pulling up. They can see what I'm doing back and forth while I'm on the call. So hopefully they will understand that while I'm chatting with the customer, I'm looking at other things. I'm doing multiple things at one time. I've got the call on this screen. I've got the email open over here, and I'm copying and pasting stuff from my other screen to this other screen, and I'm pasting things and highlighting things and hyperlinking things, and I'm pulling off information while we're doing chatting. And then once I found the one set of information that he needed, he then asked me another question that I actually didn't know the answer to. And I said, that's actually a really great question. And that's something that I don't know. And I said, normally in instances of this, if you don't need X, Y, and Z because a minimum X, Y, and Z is required, it doesn't allow you to do this. But because I don't know the answer, let me look for the exact reason why for you. Give me just a minute. And he says, man, I can tell you were a paralegal for a while because of how quick you are at finding this information. I said, man, I was such a dork. I used to love going to the law library. I mean, yes, we use Westlaw and the login. It's a website that you use as a paralegal, Westlaw and LexisNexis. And there was another one that we used to use, and I can't remember it off the top of my head because I haven't been a paralegal in 20 years. But there are websites that you can use as a paralegal to look up legal cases. So you will pull, like, say, a state statute. And so you're looking for a state statute and you've got like 123.56, okay? And you're looking for all cases that have used that as a foundation for a case, and you take whatever that state statute is, and then you have to pull case law that relates to that statute. And then you go through all of those cases. And then you go to the stacks, which is usually in the law library. You will go through reams and reams and reams of books. So you'll pull a book about this thick. You pull open the case. You can read through all the cases. Now, of course, all of this stuff is it's digital now. Back in the day, we had fucking volumes of books that we would pull, and I'd have stacks of books. Once a volume is printed, they could go back and make corrections. So you always have to check the back of the volume, which usually has like a booklet of information for like corrections or like amended complaints or like addendums and stuff that were added after the volumes were printed. Also, there is at the end of a series of booklets for like a certain run, there are extra volumes that are printed for like a year or a series or something when you go into the stacks. And so after those stacks are done, there are extra books that are printed with corrections or like additions or whatever. So when you pull one case, you then can find 15 other cases that refer back to that case that all relate to that statute. And when you're pulling stuff for one particular case, you're trying to find foundation for the case that you're working on. And so when I'm using this as a reference for when I'm doing my job at work and a customer asks me something, I am pulling foundational documentation for whatever they've asked me for. So you ask me a question and I might not know the answer to it. I'm going to go pull the research off government pages for you. I'm going to put it in an email. And then before I wrap up my call, I'm going to go over in my email, I sent you a link for this, and this is why. I sent you a link for this, and this is why. I sent you a link for this. And I'm going to go through all those links as to why they're in the email, where they're at in the email, and what they should click on first, depending on what their priority is in the conversation that we've had during that phone call. And that's how I usually wrap up my calls. And of course, I do my closing like I'm supposed to. So even though he didn't need my help to do the install, he did have other questions that I was able to help with. And then I got off the call, and then I had another call after him. So that was 2 days back to back that I helped this individual that he was grateful for. And not only did I help him the very first day to become self-sufficient enough to do it himself the second day, because of how I handled the first call, which again started off really rough, took me 20 minutes to calm him down and get him going where we needed to go. But also my persistence in assisting him and letting him know that I was there for him made it possible for me to educate him along the way, to then make him self-sufficient enough to do it himself the next time that he needed it. So keep that in mind when you're working customer service with some people over, normally the age of 60. Some people are not very computer literate. If you work with a computer system, or if you have like a banking thing that is going on or whatever, not everybody is very with it with technology. And with that comes a downside with working with older consumers, because they're not very familiar with it. Taking your time with them. I don't care if my boss is going to rush me or not, unless they're going to write me up for it, and then I'm going to fight that right up. And then if, in that instance, I would already be talking with a discrimination attorney or an employment attorney about that, because older consumers need hand-holding, and they need that extra care in order to understand things better, in my experience. And I'm not saying this to be rude in any way. I just know that people my parents' age, even though they've been around computers my entire life, even my dad, who was a Microsoft programmer back in the 80s and 90s, is now starting to lose his ability to do stuff on computers like he's a baby. And so they need the extra care that we can give them while working with them on calls. And if your employer is not kind with you about that, that just shows what a shitty company you work for, first of all. But also, I'm grateful for the company that I work for, because they don't harass me too bad about that. Yes, I'm a talker. Yes, we tell stories with our clients and we relate with them and stuff. But my customers usually tell me, maybe 1 or 2 times have I ever heard, oh my God, that girl doesn't ever shut the fuck up. But 99.9% of the time, I always get, it's been wonderful speaking with you. I love chatting with you. I've loved getting to know you. I wish I could meet you in person. This has been such a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for your help today. Thank you for taking the time to explain it to me. And those always make me feel like I've done my job. And if an employer cannot understand that, then we need to retrain our employers. That's what the problem is. Companies are only out for the bottom dollar. They don't give a shit about the employers or the employees or their consumers at this point, because companies are only out there for the money. That's why they pay us so little. And in a year or two, I'm no longer going to have a job or be able to work in customer service anymore because the fucking AI is going to take over everything. And then we're going to have a really hard time trying to get help from anything because it's all going to be computers for everything. I don't want to talk to a robot. I want to talk to a human. So leave your thoughts and comments down below. I'm going to leave this here. Hopefully you guys liked this customer service chronicles today. I loved getting to speak with the retired judge. He was amazing to work with. Again, I talked to him 2 days back to back, and I loved listening to his stories. He taught me some things about Jeep Grand Cherokee that I didn't know about. I didn't know that they had an EV model. I learned a bunch of new things about that. We had a wonderful time on the phone. I taught him some things. He taught me a few things. We had a wonderful conversation, and his wife said that if I'm ever in California, that I'm welcome to do, to go and, hang out and get a martini with them. She said a margarita earlier in the call, but then they offered martinis, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't drink alcohol, but and they said if I was ever in town to look them up, and they would love to host me, which I thought was very sweet. So I love interactions like that. It really touches my heart, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And so hopefully you guys have a fantastic day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in another video very soon. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these customer service chronicles, and I will keep recording them until I run out of stuff to talk about. And these so far are experiences that I've had, and if you guys want to send in stories, I do have an email dedicated to these for my website email. It's just stories@shop-osp.com, which is tied to my website, which is shop-osp.com. Feel free to shop there. I do ship usually next business day, and I will see you guys in another video very soon. Bye.